Okay. Hi again, Sylvain.
Hello, Claire.
So after our first episode, we thought we'd record another one to we had a couple of lovely comments actually. We had a comment from Kurt about the death of the ego being the thing that might be feared and how he doesn't actually fear death, it's more the impact it will have on the people around him. And a comment from Michael about how the physical pain is the thing that he lives with that is really the issue. And I wondered if maybe we might talk about those today as well as anything else that may come up.
Sounds very good. Yes, absolutely.
So, should we start with I think let's start with Michael's point about the sort of physical pain because a lot of people agree with that. You know, they say it's not that I'm afraid of dying, I just don't want it to hurt. I don't want the physical pain that comes with that. I mean, it's and another one of them mentioned about the fear of something like what exactly is it that we're afraid of? Are we afraid of pain? Because a fear is a physiological mammalian response. So we're obviously imagining, when we imagine death, something comes into our head that causes us to feel, cortisol, adrenaline, something unpleasant happens to us. And maybe a question also is, well, what is it? What specifically is it that we're fearing? Is it pain, or is it, as Kurt says, is it the loss of the ego? What exactly is it that's causing that discomfort to arise around death?
Well, I think we just touched about the subject last time. Is actually we tend, you us human being, to confuse death and illness and life. Which is why people think are worried about pain, for example, because they associate pain with a bad illness which will make you die. Now, the reality is, if you can look at it without the sort of concern, just objectively, death is a totally separate issue. Everybody dies, whether they're healthy, in pain, or not in pain. This is what awaits all of us, and we don't know what it is. And for some obscure reason, we tend, as a majority, to want death to be something terrible, and therefore that we don't want to get there. But the truth is, we don't know that. So if it's far more interesting, I think, to start with, to be concerned with what exists and what we are involved in, because at least then we can act accordingly. So if we go back, for example, to the notion of pain, which is a very important notion, if I would tell you that pain doesn't kill you, that in fact we are not dying at all, it would change completely the way people understand pain, because it might be a discomfort, but it's a discomfort with we. If you had eternity in front of you, with the intelligence human beings have been given, we can actually look at it and find solution for it. So we can lower the pain, and we do it already, to be fair. We can cure some illnesses, not all of them, but we're making progress everywhere. And there's a handful of people in the world who focus their lives in finding how to cope with pains and illnesses. Not enough, in my view, because there's so more people who focus on creating it. If you are not a pain, I can actually bomb you that you will feel something. So there is a lot of that as well. It's a total waste of beautiful attributes that human beings have. So I think that if you ignore the fact of death altogether, if you are in pain, I'm not saying it's pleasant, but it will not be a pain that you will resent in your being. So it won't be suffering as such. It will be physical pain only. The,
Yes.
you will not have the fear in you. You will be the impatience, the frustration, but then you will go and see people who will help you with the pain. And if they can't today help you with the pain, if everything being equal, more research will take place, and we'll learn from it. Pain in itself is a great thing, because it tells you there's something wrong. And therefore, immediately you have pain, you have an opportunity to look into deeper and find how you can actually avoid for that pain to occur. So, I mean, I've got a good example. My latest, youngest daughter, Sophie, was actually born with Crohn's disease, and she was in a very bad way. But she came out of it because she's 26 now, and living a good life. But the issue was that she accepted the pain, she accepted all the consequences of that illness, and she decided for herself, with nobody pushing her, that she would want to act in life in a way to find answers to her illness for herself, and in the meantime, or at the same time rather, find solution for other people. And she now is a researcher, and she's focusing not on the disease actually, but on cancer. And that pain that she felt, that inconvenience and that illness right at the beginning of your life, she decided to transform it into a powerful motivation to actually help with that sort of issue for herself and other people. So I think pain can be a great motivator.
Yes. It made me think as well of the story that you once told me when you were in a lot of pain, when you'd had your hip operation, and how you were able to you talk about the added layer of suffering. There's the sensation of the pain, and then there's a story you tell yourself about the pain. And it seems to be the story that we tell ourselves that is what can cause a lot of the suffering. It says that story about the man who's hit with the arrow, and that's the pain. And then the second arrow is the story he tells himself about the pain. And you have control over that second one. You have control over how you respond to the pain. Um, and yeah, maybe you can share that experience that you had when you were in extreme pain, and how you managed that, because maybe there might be other people who can relate, or that can be reassuring to hear or helpful to hear.
Oh, yes, I can say a few words about it. I mean, it's basically because when one is having a hip operation, you have a choice. You've got to have an epidural injection, which is an injection in your spine, which blocks any feeling in your lower body. So you could potentially have all the surgery done with you being wide awake. But if you want to be bored looking at the ceiling of operating theater for 5 hours, whatever it was, that's up to you. But they can also sedate you. So you've got half of your body is actually without any feelings whatsoever, physical feeling that is, sensations, and the top of your body is actually sleepy, with a sedative. Now, when you actually wake up of all this thing, the top of your body wakes up quite quickly from the sedation, and you're perfectly lucid, perfectly happy, but it's like you're only half of you. The other half doesn't exist at all. It's a very weird feeling altogether. It's not like a total anesthesia where your whole body is actually gone, and your brain and your body is all one. This is only half and half. Now, what happened was that I've been really widely awake at the top with my brain. The effect of the epidural sort of disappeared more and more, very progressively, but very slowly, but surely. And with that, the pain occurred. Now, the pain started, reasonable, but it became big more and more, and it became very uncomfortable. So I did ask the nurse with some help. She gave me a couple of pills, and then the pain carried on. And the terrible part of that is you can't move your body. Half of your body still doesn't exist, but the pain does. And sometimes if you think, oh, if I shifted my leg or whatever, maybe I could help a little bit, but you can't move at all. And when asked, the nurse, I said, look, it's very painful. Can I have some more painkiller? And she said, no, you've had everything I'm entitled to give you. I'm afraid I can't do it. It was night as well, nobody around. And I was like pinned down to a bed, like, with nails, incapable of doing anything. I couldn't move, I couldn't go anywhere. Even if I wanted to strangle the nurse because she didn't want to give me anything, I couldn't do it. And this is where it started. My thinking process, sort of, I looked at all the worst possible situation, saying, here I am, I'm totally incapable of doing anything. I can't make people give me painkillers. So I'm very frustrated. I think it's horrible, they're terrible. Also, just imagine there would be a fire. I can't move. So I'll have to be burning without being able to do anything about at all. So that is actually what I call the suffering. That story I was telling in my head is making the pain far worse than it is, because it's threatening everything I know, and I'm predicting a terrible future with it. And it's only when I said, come on, Sarah, calm down, calm down. You're making up stories. Yes, you're in pain. And actually, there is nothing you can do about it right now. And this is something good for you. Just stay with it, see whether you can, simply through looking at the reality of it and accepting it, you can get better for you. And I would recommend that to anyone because it actually did work. By accepting the pain and knowing there's nothing I could do about it, nobody was going to help me with it, but it wasn't going to kill me. It was just the pain caused by the surgery I just had, where it had been quite brutal and violent, and therefore there was a residue behind the trauma, and that becomes far more acceptable. And actually, absolutely, I promise you, this is really true. That the pain stayed there, but it wasn't hurting the same way at all. I think that was a great experience.
Thank you for sharing. I think that's so important. I mean, we're not sort of trying to deny any of these experiences of suffering or pain. I think, that there's no way to do that when the body is it's like you say, it's an intelligent signal that the body gives out. If there's something that's the matter, it's a way to say, look, you need to do something about that. There's As long as we're human, we're going to be experiencing those sensations. As you say, there's modern healthcare. There are lots of things that we can take to mitigate that. Um, so I suppose yes, I'm just curious, what we can do with our mind, with our brain, the sort of relationship that we can have to ourselves, because that is a chemical response. That is our body's response, and how we relate to ourselves, the kind of relationship we have with ourselves. And a lot of people don't trust themselves. They don't sort of trust life, maybe. They don't trust that actually the body is something positive and it's here to help, and that there might be oh, I'm fighting the body, it's giving me all these pain signals, oh no, I hate it. And then there becomes a battle. You want yourself to be something that you're not. You want yourself to be in a different state. And it seems that we have that ability to fight ourselves. Our people have these voices, and you have your voice and you're talking to yourself and you're saying, I don't like this, I don't like that. And it's quite amazing that we have that. But I also wonder if we can use that to our advantage to, as you say, to sort of move forwards with life, to progress, to support and nourish. So yeah, just a few thoughts. You getting me thinking.
Well, I mean, this is exactly what you say. You really explaining it very clearly. And one of my passion in life, and what something which motivated me and still motivates me now, because I think that's very important. It started with me having children. And as they grew up, and like everybody, I went through the whole process. I wasn't that interested to start with, but with time and more children, I became more interested. Especially when one of my children told me once, "Yeah, everything wrong with me is your fault." Like a lot of children tend to blame their parents for anything going wrong with them, and it's true that education, whatever we say or do with our children, will affect them to some extent. And I remember my reply, but it was one of my daughters who said that. And I said, well, look, now that you have established what it was, which was your problem, do something about it. I said, I did my best. I wasn't, 100% perfect. And therefore, yes, it might be my fault, but now you can address it. But at the same time, what it started in me is to say, well, wait a minute. Actually, the children, like they would tell you, they never asked to be born. It's our decision, parents. We went through, accepted the system or the method, and then we ended up having children. Now, that means really we do have a responsibility. And I think to myself now, well, I can't sort of get old, get ill, die and saying this is the worst thing, it's terrible and awful, and there is no future to it, and it's the end of the world. How can I say that to my children? I have to show them, okay, I'll lead the way, and I'm going to actually make sure that I will observe and analyze things to make sure that actually I'm telling you the truth. I don't want to pretend anything, but I want to show you as well that actually we are equipped for where we are living. The fact that we're human beings, we're incredibly well equipped for life. And then it's a question of actually being calm enough to observe and live and look for what's the positive in life? And there's so plenty of that. Life wants to succeed. Life is not about destroying life. It wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. So
Mm.
that's very where I stand now. Whenever something happens to me, I think, well, I need to see. Generally, is why I said, when I was in pain, it's not like I was imagining having pain. I was really in a situation where I was in pain, and I welcomed it because that's an opportunity to learn. So when somebody else tells me I'm in terrible pain, and I say, "Oh, don't worry about it. Forget it." I won't do that. I've experienced what it was. I know what it is. I'm not taking it lightly. But at the same time, I have an answer to it. And I know the answer I got to it. It's not because I'm somebody bright or it's not an ego thing. It's actually, in the contrary, to be the most humble creature because we were created with all those abilities in us. It's not, we don't make it up ourselves. I mean, we just can't do it. Well, it's like magic, isn't it? And
I
I think
wonder.
it's a duty, I think, to test the remedies on yourself first, and then to partake with your family, and the whole world is your family. We're all together in this boat, and therefore anybody who experiences something and find a way to make it better has got almost a duty to share it.
Mm. I mean, you have a wonderful optimistic view of life, and I've got your book, the Conditions of Life, which you cannot see because the things it keeps
That's
cutting
it,
out.
that's interesting.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. I've got it now. Um,
I
which
would
is
really, I'd love, I mean, it's not because I've written it, to be honest, but I'd love to read it because, I mean, life is so humbling if you look at it, but it's also very magical. I mean, it's a question of accepting that actually we didn't make ourselves and we didn't make the world and we didn't make the universe. We are participants, but we haven't got the foggiest idea how that happened. In the meantime, very, very simply, it's not complicated. You don't need to believe in gods or anything like that, or make particular exercises or anything like that. It's just a question of actually enjoying looking around you. We are totally 100% dependent on life to live. We are given the rules of life by life. There's absolutely no doubt about that. If you break the rules, well, we've got a heat wave at the moment where we should respect nature because it has made the condition more or less the best it could be with adjustment possible. But we can adjust. We are gifted with the ability to adjust, to make life as good as possible because it's our best interests. But we can only do so if we understand and respect the fundamental rules, which we can't change. If we change the rules of life, we're damaging life. So it's not best interest. So I wrote that little book simply to remind people, just look around. I mean, it's not complicated. Look, what are the conditions of life? Once you see them, you can't disagree that it's not how it works. It's so obvious. And once you've got that, of course, it gives you immediately a very good view of what you can do next and what we can do in this world, which we really enjoy, not because we given a job by somebody, you get paid to do a job for somebody who wants to be rich. This is not what life is about. We are given a job already by life itself to maintain life in the best possible condition. And when you see that, then you are not a worker, you don't have a job, you're a participant, and you enjoy being together with life to make it better. You don't need to go and suffer and having somebody who's exploiting you to make you work. We are not workers. We are, as I say, participants, and we can claim that place anytime we want to. So read that book, honestly, not for me, but to see what you think of it.
it's a very good book. As you're talking, you're making me think of Kurt's question, which was about ego. You mentioned that there's a way to sort of go against the conditions of life, maybe what's contributing to some of the what's happening at the moment with the environment. And it seems that there's a sort of this sort of product, the drive for more and individual needs and wants, which can feel sort of like it seems to be going against life, as you say. You don't respect life, you get the negative consequences. And I don't think that's what Kurt meant by the death of the ego. I think he meant the death of an identity. And a lot of people have this sort of sense of this is who I am, this is me, this is and it can become a collection of conditions. It's things that we're told about ourselves that in a way aren't us. If we're given labels and categorized and we pick up this identity and it can always feel like we're wearing a mask, we're wearing a big coat of stuff that we've been handed. And sometimes you want to say, I just want to throw the whole load off. I just want to walk around as me, as the natural, authentic me, and not in any kind of naturalist type way, but in a just in a sort of expressive, authentic kind of open way. Because I mean to me, that's what ego is. It's an identification with a collection of beliefs or ideas. And if we believe ourselves to be these things, then there is going to be a fear of death because this isn't a real attachment. Life doesn't like ask the oak tree if it minds if it's going to die. It probably won't. But if it has an identity as I'm the best oak tree, I've been here for 1,000 years, don't you know, and I'll look at all these other loser oak trees, I'm the best, then it's going to have a real desire to stay alive. It wants to prove a point. But if it without that sort of holding on to a belief system, I wonder actually if a lot of the fear of death is that. Why don't you talk about ego? I'd like to hear what you think about it.
Well, that's a funny thing, Hugo. The best way I can explain it to the way I understand it is that an ego is a definition. Basically, you can describe who you are with words. So that's what, for me, the ego is. Now, those words, and I keep saying that because it's so simple as well, but it's difficult to understand. So be careful with that, is the fact that actually anything we put in words is not ours because we're born without words. Got to understand that words don't come with us. We are taught words. And not only we are taught words, but we are taught meaning of words. So we will hear who we are by our parents to start with, and the immediate environment, and then thereafter by educators or bosses, or whatever. Remember when your mother would say, "Oh, you're so selfish. Stop doing that." So there you are, I'm selfish. And then you will read in the magazine, if you got hair like this, you look very intelligent. Oh, I'm intelligent because my hair is like that. So slowly but surely, you actually build an image which is actually a tangible image and which can be described in words. That's for me is the ego. But who are we really? Well, we're nothing like that. We are not made of definition. We are actually a human being, which is a live creation, and we have all the possibilities built in us. We don't need to know who we are because we are. And so it's the opposite. The ego is a terrible limitation on the natural human being. We are really limiting ourselves because we're excluding anything which is not in words and or anything which hasn't got the right words. Any bad word we try to ignore. And we fabricate like two egos, one with the baddie one and the goody one. And then, we discuss in our heads, what am I going to do at that situation? What am I going to say to that person? How am I going to deal with that? And then you've got the discussion, yak, 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 in one in each ear. And so that's ego, and it becomes us, of course. That's the way people see us, and that's where we see ourselves. There again, discrepancy sometimes. So it's a continuous conflict, and a continuous sort of doubting until we realize we don't need any definition. We don't need to have an ego. It's part of what we are actually as human beings. When we're presented with a situation, we actually know what to do about it. And it doesn't come into words. It doesn't need to be definition. You will need words, obviously, if you want to communicate with someone, but the words are not you. It's just a means of communication. Yeah, the words don't tell you who you are. You're actually mentioning what needs to be done. So it's a tangible thing all the time. So of course we became so used to that we feel that death is going to be the death of that particular described individual, that image and those words, and that is losing ourselves. And we don't know where that's going to go. If you take that away and you're just a natural human being, well, you don't even know about death, to be honest. You just carry on living. This is not your problem to decide what it's like. You go along because you're programmed to do just that. So you don't have to worry about who you are. It doesn't come into it. And people think that, oh, if you're not told who you are, if you're not given the rules, it's going to be chaos. Why? I mean, don't people think that actually we've got 40,000 years of human beings behind us? And the first one, look, Adam and Eve didn't know anything at all, did they, to be fair? So how did they survive? And so they managed very well. Our ancestors did, the cavemen and all theirs. I mean, they were much stronger than we are today because the environment in which they live was very, very worrying and difficult to live in. They survived, and we're here because they survived. So, we've got to look into who we are, but in the natural being, that's who we are. No, no definition needed.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I think it's about trusting ourselves, isn't it? It's about seeing that we can manage that we don't need the ego, this sort of mental overlay. It reminds me of a quote from Eckhart Tolle who said the the trick of life is to, I don't know if he said the trick, but something is die before you die and see there is no death, is what he said. And I always sort of thought, what does he mean by that? Die before you die. But he didn't mean, he meant the death of the ego. He meant the death of this conceptual overlay, this story that we tell about ourselves, this sort of sense of being separate, being cut off from life. And when you're part of life, there's that fear doesn't arise in the same way because you're not sort of constantly projecting into the future and thinking about it. As you say, you're just getting along, you're just trusting, you're just going for it. And I mean, people, when you mentioned Adam and Eve, I thought, well, they didn't really do brilliantly, did they? There was the thing with the snake and the apple, and you sort of you sort of think, well, have human beings really fudged up a little? Can we actually trust? Um, can we be trusted? We're going to be doing
Yeah.
silly things like this.
I mean, to be honest, you've touched something I'm really keen on. I love Adam and Eve. I love that story. And I think that actually it's as an allegory, I mean, it really says a lot about being a human being. I mean, for me, the Garden of Eden is basically nature, right? So that's where we're born in. Now, whether it's Adam and Eve or no, us, it's the same. So here we are, we're born in there, we know nothing. And the choice is either we trust that we survive and we act. And we don't know exactly how, but we've got feelings. There's nobody to teach us anything, so we learn from nature. That's God, isn't it? I mean, so you act, and the way you act is God as well, isn't it? Because I mean, we didn't make ourselves, so whatever attributes we have to observe and to act on the environment is a mysterious thing, isn't it? No, so you carry on that way. And here's the ego coming. Then you've got a second human being, whether it's Eve or Eve in this particular case. And here she says, hey, you could be God because you are talking, and you're acting. So imagine you know everything. You could be God. We don't need to be God. That's what the snake told me. No, so that's what happens. Adam said, "Ooh, wow, look at me. I'm the big guy," and ego is born. And I'm going to carry on doing that. And I'm going to pretend that I'm God, that I can do everything, but I can't really. So it's the beginning of suffering, isn't it? That's exactly what God did. Said, well, if that's the way you are, I'm kick you out of the Garden of Eden. So it means you've no longer that connection where, it's all godly. You're part of that creation and you are creation yourself. And you don't you just enjoy being alive because it's a wonderful experience. I'm not asking you, you're not slaves to me. You're just there to enjoy it. No, no, we don't want that because I'm going to be God now. So God said, well, in that case, I'll kick you out of here and you're going to suffer forever and a day. That's your choice. And there we are out of there. So that's the birth of ego.
And you
Imagine.
told me a really funny story once, Sylvana. You forced your way back into the Garden of
I
Eden.
did. I know it sounds silly, but I like doing things like that.
No, I loved it.
Because when after God sort of kicked Adam and Eve and the snake, by the way, would be condemned to be on his stomach for the rest of his life and crawl around. He placed an archangel at the entrance to the garden and with a big flaming sword. Now, I remember being really annoyed with God. Yeah, not really, but I wanted to understand life. I was very, very resentful that actually it was so complicated and so difficult and getting nowhere. And I said, why those stupid Adam and Eve? What on earth they couldn't realize at the time they should have stayed in the Garden of Eden. If I were there, I would be jolly happy. I would be very happy to do what I'm told. I don't want to rule the world or anything like that. And I said, well, I'm going to go back there. I'm going to see because I've really had enough. Either I jump off a cliff or I'm going to go to Garden of Eden. The choice was easy. I prefer the Garden of Eden than jumping off a cliff, to be honest. Having said that, of course, when I got there, there was a blaming archangel with his flaming sword. And so nobody could actually enter there. It was so terrifying. A huge, archangel, really, there's no way you could pass him. And this is where the decision I had to make is either I turn my back and then my tail between my legs and then be even worse than before, or I say, "Oh, the hell with it," or
Epic with it.
or paradise about it. I don't know. And I said, "I don't care. This is actually too bad. I'd rather finish here. I'll go anyway." And the archangel was a virtual archangel. There was actually nothing there, and I walked right away through it like a ghost. It was only, and I realized that actually God was benevolent. It would teach you lesson, and it looked like the real thing, but it didn't mean to harm us at all. And I went back into the garden and say, "Look, I'm sorry. I realize we've been acting like idiots, and I really want to be back here. I think I've understood now." And the life told me said, "Welcome." That's my story. It's a Jungian way of looking at life, I suppose, or sorting out one's head. But it worked very well for me.
Mm. Well, it gives one hope because I think people do sometimes think, well, this has all gone a bit pear-shaped, and look at what's happening, and is there any hope of getting this right? I mean, we're getting a bit off topic now with this conversation, but I think it's interesting. Yeah, and there is. I mean, what you're saying now is yes, there is. You can look at the past. You can say, we got things a bit wrong. I have a few regrets maybe, but it's never too late. Even if it's coming to the end of our lives, it's still possible to say, well, yes, maybe I would have lived a bit differently. Maybe I could have done this, but you can say, okay, well, doesn't matter. I've done it now. Now I want to live differently. Even if you only got a week left to live, that's still worth doing.
You only say that because you believe there is death, and death is final. We don't know where death is, so it doesn't matter whether you're 1 second or 2 years or 20 years before your death, apparently, because in fact, at any time you got forever. So this is makes such a great difference not to be involved in fearing death or expecting death or waiting for death, because when you do that, you limit completely what you're able to do. Because it's always seems too late or not worth it or whatever it is. In fact, whatever the instant is, the present is, you've got eternity in front of you. So you can always do anything right now.
It's actually Ash shared a comment via Messenger to me. He sent me a video. I don't think I shared it with you. It was a Zen koan, like a story about there was a man clinging to a branch by his teeth. And if he was to fall, he would fall to his death, but he was clinging onto this branch and it was just with his teeth. And some monk comes along, or wise person, and says, what is the one thing you can say that will save your life? What is the thing that you will say that can save your life? And the teacher said to his students, what is the answer? Go away and think about it. What is the one answer that can save this man's life? Um, and everyone's there thinking, oh, there must be some clever trick. There must be some way we can avoid death for this person. How do we manage to save his life? And actually, the story goes, it doesn't matter what he says. He just, you could say, fuck or whatever on his way down. I'm sorry to swear, I'm gonna have to cut that out now.
That,
Or
that was
or
brutal.
oh, how wonderful, whatever it happens to be, yeah, I'm dying. It doesn't really matter what he says on his way down, but it does save his life in a way, because as he's going down, he's let go of the branch, he's alive, maybe for the first time he is fully alive, even if that's just for a few seconds. And that in a way saves his life, because if you're there sort of clinging on and you're desperate and you're suffering, he's going to die at some point and it's going to be a miserable flipping death. But if he's there saying, well, actually, it doesn't matter, I'm going to let go, it kind of does save his life. So it's a bittersweet story. I think everyone was expecting there to be some magical solution and like a sort of angel to come and whisk him away, like a fairy story. But in a way, this is almost better because it's real, and this is something that we all have the power to do. And it's not about saving ourselves as a physical form. It's about freeing ourselves and yeah, truly living, not having that fear of death.
That's right, because I mean, it's difficult to have a conversation about death, ignoring it. So saying, well, yeah, we accept it, but we are not always saying, oh, I've only got a week before, oh, this is a, you're always referring to death as the end. And not only the end, but the end of a pleasurable life, which probably we never had because nobody's got 100% pleasurable life. There are a lot of things which didn't go well in their lives, whoever that the person is. But it's always that interpretation, say, oh, well, death is the end. So we define our life by the fact that it's a limited final length, and that the end could intervene anytime. I mean, in particular after a certain age. So it makes people act accordingly, which means that they are either they want to enjoy themselves too much because it's only now. I'm only young for a particular time, so I've got to do everything now because I'm going to get old and I've got all those responsibilities. Terrible. And then, oh, I've got to get all that money for my live for my children, and I'm going to be responsible. I've got to work hard, and I'll do anything my boss tell me, although he's a horrible person and making a lot of money and exploiting people. Oh, I've only got 2 months left to live, and I've got. See, this is actually the worst thing which can happen to anyone, because when death do no longer applies in terms of actually being the end, well, everything we do, we've got time disappears. We're not limited by time anymore. We can get on any time with anything we want to. Death becomes an irrelevant fact because it's not an interruption necessarily.
Mm. Yes, yeah. Yeah, I think it's a really beautiful and really liberating way to live for whatever. Because I mean, time is a construct. We tell ourselves, we say young, old, middle age, whatever. We tell all these stories about how much time we have, but this is again, it's thoughts, it's identity, it's ideas. Right now there is a timelessness, there is a presence. So yeah, I think living in that space is what can bring that peace and that loosening of some of that fear. Um, so don't know what else to say now.
Well, I think we've said quite a lot, haven't we?
I think we've rattled on for quite a while. We meandered a few different topics. If
That may be
anybody's got
good.
anything they want us to talk about next time.
That might be enough for today. I've really enjoyed it, by the way, for what it's worth. I mean, I hope other people will enjoy it as well. But I think it's such an exciting conversation, really, and life is can be really worth living. There is no doubt about that. And we've got so much to discover, all the time. Especially when you actually take the view that actually we are not our own making, and that actually there is no death as such. We're part of a process. We don't know exactly what that is, but we are part of it. We are participant. We are participant. We've got a purpose being here. There's a reason to be here. We've been created, and therefore we are part of it.
Mm,
Isn't that nice to be actually part of it? We've been wanted in a way.
mm. Yeah, it's
And we
cool.
can act, we can act, we can do things to actually participate in making it better and stronger and more enjoyable. Why do we do anything but that?
Mm. Well, thank you, Sylvan. It's always lovely to hear from you and talk to you.
But thanks for the opportunity as well.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.